To understand classes, let's take this dog function here, which we've used to create Snickers and Sunny, and turn that into an ES6 class. Now, there's two ways to make a class in ES6. There's a class declaration and a class expression. A class declaration simply goes, you write the keyword class, and then you type the name of the class, dog, and then you open up the class block. A class expression looks like this, const dog equals class, and you open and close your class block. Very similar to how you can stick a function inside of a variable, or you can just go ahead and declare the actual function itself. I much prefer this first way here. There are use cases for this, but we'll go ahead and use class dog here. Now, inside of the body of your class, there are a bunch of methods. The only method that is absolutely required when you're building a class is what's called a constructor. And that is what happens when someone creates a new version. So we'll say constructor. Now, you notice that I didn't say constructor function. It's constructor open, close, parenthesis, open, close your actual block. And all of your methods that live inside of a class are going to look exactly like that. It's exactly the same as our object shorthand for methods that we were showing earlier in our object improvement video. Now, that constructor video gets called when someone makes a new one. And what is it going to take? Well, it's going to take a name because we pass a name. It's going to take a breed because we pass it the breed. So we can actually just take these two parameters, pop them in there, and same goes for the code that happens when something is created. We'll just say this.name equals whatever they passed in name, and this.breed is whatever they passed in as the breed. Now, we're done that part here. We need to now work on these prototype methods, bark and cuddle. So we can go into here, and you might think you do this, comma, bark, open, close. However, that is almost right, but you do not need this comma, or you cannot have this comma here. So whenever you have a method inside of a class, do not put a comma. It might seem weird to you, but that's just syntax. If you have one there, it's going to break. So we'll give ourselves that method there. And then inside of the bark, we can simply just move this console log, bark, bark, my name is this.name. Same goes for the cuddle method. And of course, if your method had any parameters, you could put them in here, but we don't in this case. I'm going to move it up into there. Now, that should create a dog, which we are allowed to call new against, and we should pass it Snickers and King Charles. So if I save that and refresh, I should be able to call all the methods I previously was. So we'll say Snickers is a dog, Sunny is a dog, Snickers dot bark, and Sunny dot bark. Good. So that is the very basics of a class. However, there are quite a few more things that we can learn about it. There's one thing called a static method. Now, in order to understand what a static method is, think back to when we were working with array.from and array.of. You know that we have array.from, which will create an array out of something like a node list or an arguments. Or you know that we have array.of, which only lives on top of array. So if I create, let's say array.of 1, 2, 3, 4, that will create as an array, but that of is not a method on every single array. So if I create myself a new array, names equals Wes and Kate, I don't have names.of, right? That's not a method. That's because it only lives on array directly. It's not inherited by all of them. So if we also wanted something similar to that for our dog, like maybe like info, we could say static info. And what that would do is console log some information. A dog is better than a cat by 10 times. It's probably low, but we can work with it. Now, if I say Sunny and I say sunny.info, it doesn't work. Why not? Because Sunny is an instance of dog. How do I get this info? Because it is a static property, or because it is a static method, sorry, we can only call it on dog directly. And then we get the information. So that's a static method that lives inside of it. You can also use getters and setters on classes, just as you would an object. You simply say get, let's use the description. And when someone asks for Snickers.description, we will return this.name is a this.breed type of dog. Then we should be able to say Snickers.description and it will tell us. So we use a getter there. It's not a method. It's a property that is sort of computed when you pull on it. Similarly, if you wanted to also work with a setter, say set nicknames, and we'll just say whatever the person actually passes in, which is going to be the value. We can say this.nick, and we can't use nicknames again because we're actually using that as a setter here. So we have to have another variable called nick. And we say equals value, and then I'll just call trim against it. Sometimes people pass in stuff with some spaces. So that's just an example of when you might want to use a setter. So give that a save. Say Snickers dot nicknames equals Snicky. A whole bunch of spaces. There we go. But now we can also have a getter. Let's say Snickers dot nicknames. Won't give us anything. Why not? We haven't set a getter for it. So get nicknames equals return this dot nick. So say Snickers dot nicknames, and then Snickers dot nickname get. It returns us just it. Because why? Because we put a setter where we trimmed it as it came in, and then a getter where we removed it. We could also say like dot to uppercase, and then you set it as Snicky with a whole bunch of spaces. You get it as uppercase Snicky. That's a setter and a getter where you have the same property value. So that is the basics of a class. Let's look at some more advanced examples of what you can do with it.